Yeah, so I think what we could start off with, Arnold, is a bit about your story and how we got to where we are today. Where did it all begin from you? If you start kind of, teenager, we don't have to go younger than that.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I'm Dutch, right? So my mom is Dutch, my dad's Kenyan. Grew up in The Hague, and I think from a young age, like many people, I guess I was always interested in traveling. Um, had various experiences. I think the most early one, the most significant one, was when I went interrailing with a really good friend of mine. We went to France, to Italy. We even got took a ferry to from Greece to Turkey. We traveled a lot. It was super exciting. That was when I was about 17. Then I graduated high school, and I missed my graduation actually to go to a summer camp in the US. Yeah, which was just amazing. I was always really interested in, still am really interested in politics and America and all that kind of stuff. So the
But now
camp for
the
me was a chance to,
good time at the moment, lots of interesting things
yeah,
going.
for sure, absolutely. So, but yeah, I went there for summer camp, and yeah, it was really full on, really, really intense, but brilliant, really. Just a chance to be out in nature, meet lots of Americans, meet lots of people from all sorts of other countries. It was about 50-50, and I had a,
How
yeah, a wonderful time with that, really.
how old were you then, roughly? Was
18,
that?
yeah, 18 I was at that time. And yeah, it was really good. I mean, it was the kind of the quintessential thing like we're doing, I guess, to a large extent now, because it was a real work experience, meeting people, but then also traveling, and kind of seeing the country as well.
Yeah, and it's kind of come full circle a bit because we actually were in touch with your old camp recently, weren't we?
Exactly, yeah. And I think one of the interesting things there was that basically the camp they showed me around. They did a bit of a pan video call where they showed me the whole camp and what it looks like, and it basically hadn't changed at all, which was quite interesting because obviously it is how many years ago? 3 years ago. No, it was I guess it's about 26 years ago at the moment. So yeah, it was really great that it still looked the same and it still had the same appeal. And I find that really interesting actually with the American camp because obviously so much has changed, especially when it comes to technology and all those kind of things. But the essence of the camp was exactly the same, like, being out in nature, and just having fun and connecting with people. And I think that's kind of, I guess, in terms of what we're talking about today and what our programs are all about, that's, I think it's a real through line. And it's almost kind of the connection, the real connection. And I think that's one of the things I'm so passionate about, and probably more than ever, I think, in terms of we'll speak about maybe later bit about the pandemic and sort of what life has become for many people, which is basically kind of what we're doing now in a way too, but like talking through a screen, sitting down, working, and maybe not really having that authentic connection. And I think the things that we do with these programs, they're really they go to that authentic connection with people. And yeah, the US campus is definitely a prime example of that for sure.
Exactly. And I think, we when we've been speaking to these camps, a lot of their ethos is no
Yeah,
phones.
definitely.
You're only allowed to go on your phone in the evening or whatever, and the kids aren't allowed. And I think that's so great. I think, you know, that's we're really lacking that. So it's great that even 26 years later, it's a similar kind of vibe still going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a really interesting one because that's one of the things like I didn't know how people would take that, but I get the sense so far that people like it. Like people like that. Like when I talk about that in interviews and say, okay, there's going to be no phones at this camp, people seem to not mind that. So that's quite quite cool, I think.
The resistance from the children. I wonder if there's a
Yeah.
bit of resistance at first, and then I'm sure they have a great time.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
sure,
mean, oh, my son is year 3 now, and I think, based on my expectation, it would be kind of the same ultimately, that there would be resistance, but in the end, that there would be buy into it. But yeah, in terms of my own story, I think the next stop for me was Israel and a kibbutz in Israel. And yeah, I mean, I liked all my experiences abroad. It's hard to rank them actually, but this was very near the top in terms of just what it was. In terms of the weather, the whole experience, amazing people I met at the kibbutz. So it was just yes, yeah, similar in terms of the American one that it was very outdoorsy. I was working in a zoo at times. I was working before breakfast out in the fields. I was doing all sorts, but I think yeah, it was just a super interesting experience and really nice people again from all sorts of places in the world. And then I went to university studying social science, political science. Still, yeah. So I think I
And
was
where was
definitely one
that?
of, sorry,
Was
yeah.
that in London? Was that?
No, this was in Utrecht in the Netherlands. It was great. It was definitely one of those cases where, like a lot of people, I think I went to do a degree in something I was super interested in, and like I said, still I'm very interested in, but like maybe without a very clear cut career plan, other than like because I had been doing and what my natural interests were, there was probably an idea to maybe eventually move abroad. And towards the end, I was looking at, master's programs, and my sister lives in the UK and lived in the UK back then as well. So the UK became a very natural candidate, and I'd been to London and I really enjoyed it. So that was something I had then lined up, and I got an offer, and it was really exciting. But then I was thinking, okay, am I going now, or am I going to take one more year to do something else? And basically, I was sort of living with a great guy, Brandon from China. 3 years in uni, every year he was my flatmate, and I'd heard so much about Shanghai and China and the life, and it all basically sounded very exciting. So yeah, I decided to go to teach in China at that point. Um, for I knew at least I knew it was going to be at the very maximum a year. It actually, in my case, ended up only being half a year. Sometimes I feel a bit guilty about that now because our programs, especially for China, they need to be for a full year. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I did 6 months, but yeah, it was just really mind blowing. I think what I always tell people when it comes to these programs teaching abroad, I'm quite a strong believer in kind of following your gut feeling and just doing something you're excited about. And why you might be excited about it can vary so much from person to person. And I think soon we'll be speaking about your journey in more detail, Josh, and what you loved about China and about Thailand. But for me, it was sort of about pretty much the kind of the social science related interest, just being in China and seeing what people really love about China. So how people really live in China. Because I think when I'm thinking about these programs and the experiences and why I think it's so valuable, I was thinking about kind of traveling. And let's say when I was interrailing, the best moment when you're traveling, at least for me, like it used to be like being in a taxi and talking to an Italian guy about his football team or something like talk, trying a bit of French at a bakery or something, and then having a bit of a striking up a slight conversation with someone and trying to see how it goes. And I think these kind of work abroad programs, they're kind of that like, times 10 or times 100. It's exponentially more of that, but it's the same type of that dynamic where you're really immersed in the place. And I think with China, especially at that time, well, China still, of course, but like China is such a fascinating place that it was growing so quickly. It was just when they joined the WTO in 2002 and 2003. And yeah, there was just such energy and palpable change in China at that time. And I really had a great experience there.